Okay, we're here on Bounce Around Charleston, and welcome to Bounce Around Charleston. But today, very interesting show for you. We have the Lowcountry Rise organization, Lachey Birds, co-founder, along with Shavonna Martinez, co-founder. They're here today, and we're also going to interact with the young man, Mr. James Johnson. And we're going to talk about transitioning back into society. Mr. Johnson can really tell us about it because that's a part of his life. And Ms. Birds and Ms. Martinez, they're going to talk about how they help people with the transition. Welcome to Bounce Around Charleston.
Thank you for having us.
Rise, tell us about the organization.
Lowcountry Rise is something that Lachey and I started a couple of years ago. It just came out of a passion for working with the incarcerated population and their families. We recognized that there was a need in the community that no one was meeting, and we decided instead of sitting around and saying somebody needs to meet this need, we would be the ones to meet this need. What we do is we work with incarcerated men while they're incarcerated, they're recently released once they're released, and then we also work with their families at the same time. And our hope is that once the families are united and the incarcerated person comes back into the community, everybody will be on the same page in an effort to ease that transition and decrease some of the obstacles that they have upon release.
Okay, so Lachey, when you all have met with the families, what are some of the things that you have encountered?
Okay, so we have some of the children that we meet. They are worried about mom, because usually it's the father that's incarcerated that we're working with. So they're worried about mom and how mom's going to make ends meet while dad's incarcerated. So sometimes it's very heartbreaking to see that the children at such a young age is concerned about their well-being and their mom's well-being. Then we have the mothers or the spouses are concerned as well about how they're going to fend for their families when their spouse is away. Some behavioral problems in the kids oftentimes that we find, some decrease in grades, some acting out. And then sometimes we also find the opposite. That they're glad that father is incarcerated because that means there's no more chaos in the home. And so, I can sleep a little bit better at night because dad's not beating up on mom. So we see the whole gamut of what goes on in the family when the spouse was there and when the spouse was gone.
Okay. Mr. James Johnson, you've heard what Ms. Martinez and Ms. Birds had to say about their organization. Tell us what you encountered in this situation.
Foremost, I'll say that this conversation I feel is long overdue, because what many individuals fail to realize is that we live in a country, America, which has the highest incarceration rate in the world. That doesn't mean that America incarcerates more people than any other country, but that we incarcerate a higher percentage of our population than any other country. So when you got out, did you have a problem transitioning back into society? Making the transition into society, it's imperative that an individual be able to secure employment. Statistics indicate that if an individual is able to secure employment upon their release from prison, they're less likely to be reincarcerated. So employment is a big issue, and I think that it not just begins when you're released, but preparation has to begin while incarcerated. Okay. Lachey, you heard what he just said. So when you all got together and decided to create Lowcountry Rise, did you all have all of those things in mind? Helping people find jobs, helping families come back together?
Well, the interesting thing about how we got started, we were working inside the detention center already, and we saw the cycle of the recidivism coming in, being released, coming in. And so we asked them while we were there, what were some of the things that kept you coming back or didn't work out for you and you got arrested again? And so when we started thinking about how we're going to address the need of the people, we said, what were some of the things that they kept telling us? So employment was one of the things that they kept hounding on. They couldn't get a job because of their record, or they got arrested because they were trying to take care of their family, but they got a driving under suspension charge because they were trying to go back and forth to work. So yes, we looked at all of those components before we launched Lowcountry Rise.
So many times they became repeat offenders,
Right.
because of not being able to handle some of the situations at hand.
Right.
Absolutely.
Because they were incarcerated for a while. So, if they had a $1,500 reinstatement fee, if they couldn't pay that, they didn't have a job, then they chanced it to get to an interview or to get to a job.
So then the both of you talked about, what can we do to help this situation?
Right.
Absolutely. Like I said, we talked for a while now about someone needs to do something about this, someone needs to do something about this. And one day we said, well, nobody's doing anything about this. I guess we're those someone, so let's get on the good foot. and one thing that we talk about all the time is kind of live in a society, like Mr. Johnson was saying, where it's a conversation that's long overdue, because these people get incarcerated and we kind of forget about them. Out of sight, out of mind, but 85% of people who get incarcerated get released. They come home. One day they will come home. And we just have to ask ourselves, do we want them to come home the same people they were when they got incarcerated, or do we want them to come home different people? And that's really our mission. We want to help them figure out what got them there, and what is it that we can do, what can Lowcountry Rise do to help you be that different person that you need to be, so that when you come back out, you're a better man or woman, you're a better mother, a better father, you're just a more productive member of society.
Thank you. Mr. Johnson, if you had met these two young ladies in your transition, would it have made things better?
Definitely. It makes things much smoother and much better when you have people that are on the same page that you are, that are willing to lend a helping hand. We live in a society, unfortunately, where there is a negative stigma attached to being an ex-offender. And I think it's imperative, as these young ladies have stated, that we realize that most of the individuals who are incarcerated will one day come home. And it's imperative, again, that in dealing with this matter, if we're going to combat mass incarceration and recidivism, then it's imperative that we lay aside opinions and we pick up reality and truth. And if we're going to deal with it, we have to do so from a realistic standpoint. It's idealistic to think that merely incarcerating someone is going to enable them to become a better individual. Statistics will show you that the longer a person spends incarcerated, the more psychopathic they become. Statistics again show you that 8 out of every 10 individuals who are incarcerated, or rather who are released from prison, return to prison within 3 years. 80% of individuals who are released from prison each year return to prison within 3 years of their release. Of the 20% that don't return within 3 years, 60% of them will return to prison at some point in their lifetime. So based on the numbers, again, this conversation is long overdue.
What do you suggest that we do?
What I suggest foremost is that we have more people of these young ladies' caliber and stature that are willing to step up and face the reality of what the problem is. We look at crime, and we have many of our politicians that they run on a platform of being tough on crime, but I've never heard one of them say they're tough on rehabilitation. I don't have a problem with incarcerating someone that commits a crime. I have a question. The question is, what are you doing with them while you have them incarcerated?
To help them, okay. How would you answer what he just said?
The question as to what are we doing with them? We're putting them behind bars or behind walls, and we're kind of just forgetting that they're there. Again, which is why Lowcountry Rise exists. I mean, we're aware that, in the detention centers and in the prison system, there are programs available. But a lot of times there's a lot of hoops that they have to jump through. Because there's so many people that are incarcerated, it takes so long for them to even get into a program. And after a while, like you said, once you've been there for so long, the more institutionalized a person becomes, and the less interested they become in rehabilitating themselves, and the more interested they are in just surviving in the environment that they're in.
There was a movie, you might have seen it, Shawshank Redemption.
Yes, sir.
Did you see that movie?
Yes, sir.
When some of them got back into society, they could hardly deal with it.
Exactly.
Okay?
Exactly.
And when I saw that movie, I watched it more than once, because it was just so moving to see how when the young man went to the grocery store to work, he couldn't handle it. So when he got back to his room, his apartment, he decided one day just to hang himself. Because it would be better not to be here than to deal with the pressures of life. So my thing is, are there those in the system who may not be able to transition back into society?
Well, I believe that anybody, if they want to and they have the support, can transition successfully back into society. We've had people who've been incarcerated for 14 or 15 years, and technology has changed. I think this was around the time that microwaves came out, and the guy didn't know how to work a microwave. We had a client recently who came out and didn't know how to operate the Coke machines at Wendy's. They don't know how to operate the smartphones because they've been incarcerated that long. So technology, things have changed, but if you have somebody that's willing to sit there and say, okay, well, this is how you operate it without judgment, like he said, suspending judgment and not saying, oh my gosh, you don't know how to do that. There are so many things that change, and we are on the outside and we're able to change with it. But if you're behind walls, then you're not making any of those changes. You're not adapting to society. So when you come out, it's culture shock. Sure, you've been alive and living, but you're just existing behind walls. You don't have those.
So are you all ready to handle that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've been doing what we do for a long time. Our experience, we have 20 plus years of experience combined working with the incarcerated population. It's our passion. It's what we love to do. I mean, we spend day in, day out thinking of different ways, being innovative on how we can help these guys. We are we're very personal, and so like Lachey mentioned, we'll drive them to a job interview. We'll drive them to the DMV. We'll sit with them at the computer and say, this is a space bar, this is the back key, this is what the left side of the mouse does, this is what the right side of the mouse does. And so really it doesn't take too much to say to yourself, this person needs help. I am capable of helping them, so I'm going to help them.
So what I want you all to do, I love this whole conversation, and I think it's very necessary. So what I need you all to do, because I need you to say to the public what they need to do to help you, help them.
Well, we have a plethora of needs. We're like a baby. Babies need a lot of nurturing and a lot of taking care of at the beginning. So we are like that baby. We need funds, we need support, we need donors to believe in what we do enough to give to us. They can do that by going to our website, www.lowcountryrise.org, and there's a donate button. They can donate to us. They could, if they don't want to donate online, they can mail us their donation. We are 501c3, a nonprofit organization with the IRS, so their donation is tax deductible. We're in need of space. So right now we go inside the detention centers, and then we meet the families where they are. So we'll go to their homes, we'll meet at a local coffee shop, we meet at the fire station, so we meet different places to cater to our families. But we would really love to have a space where we can call our own and hang up our shingle and say Lowcountry Rise is here. So people will know where exactly to find us. So those are our immediate needs.
Okay, and what about how do you get your clients? You go to the
We go inside the detention center. Okay. So our clients are self-referred mostly. They tell us that they're interested in the program. We do have attorneys that will come and say, hey, I want my guy to be inside of your program. They still will have to do the process like everyone else because our program is completely voluntary.
Okay, Mr. Johnson, what's your final word?
Just in closing, I'd like to encourage young men and women of all colors, but primarily, of course, African Americans. And I say primarily, of course, African Americans, because many will insist that the topic of mass incarceration has nothing to do with race. But then when we look at the numbers, we see that African Americans, we account for approximately almost 15% of the American population, but we make up almost 50% of the prisoners. So again, I want to encourage brothers and sisters of all races, primarily African Americans, that this is a task at hand that we ourselves have to take on. We can't wait for society to accept us, and we can't wait for the help. We have to go about doing it ourselves.
Okay, we're going to bring you all back to talk about this some more, because this is a this is a powerful topic, and we must talk about it. Okay, I want to thank Siobhan Martinez, co-founder, and Lachey Birds, co-founder, and Mr. James Johnson for being here today on Bounce Around Charleston to talk about a vitally important situation, transitioning men and women back into society. And stay tuned, Lowcountry, because Project Love has something for you for Easter. We'll be right back after this break.